could this be the case in LA where there's something nefarious going on for the plans of how they're going to sort of like redevelop LA into this smart city? I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. What is this, Monday? Yeah.
Yeah, I had to think about it too. I never know what
Shit, what
day
day
it
is it? Yeah. Yeah, so we're just gonna have to keep talking about the fires because the shit is crazy. And I feel like this is turning into the Maui of 2025. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. But I feel like it's getting more publicity and it's more in the mainstream because you have all these celebrities that are using their platforms to call it out, which I think they should, absolutely. And, unfortunately, Maui didn't get the same press, but maybe people will go back in retrospect and look at that situation now a little bit differently. Just like this is causing people to look more at North Carolina.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like just like with Maui and the hurricanes, like there's a lot of conspiracy shit surfacing with these fires that we're going to get into. But before we do, last I saw this morning, latest numbers confirm the death toll is now up to 24, and they expect that to keep increasing. More than 12,300 structures have been damaged or destroyed, over 40,000 acres burned. And I was reading something that like one of the fires is larger, like if you visualize Manhattan times two.
That's
And
what
I
my
think that
dad
was
was saying.
just the Palisades fire, though, right?
And they don't even have it contained, right?
No,
It's
no,
only like 13% contained or something.
they don't have any of the fires contained.
Ugh.
And like they're reported, like this is reportedly the most expensive natural disaster in the history of California and possibly turning into in the history of the United States. And they're expecting more strong winds this week. So like who knows how much worse it's going to get. I think at one point there were 8 different fires going on, but the biggest ones are still the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, the Kenneth fire, the Hearst fire, and the Lydia fire. And these are all still burning. And we still don't know the causes of any of these fires, but there are like crazy theories going around. There were 2 separate suspects arrested for arson last week, and we haven't heard much about them except you and I talked about this offline because one of my friends had sent this to me because it happened near his house. And this guy, citizens saw this guy with a blowtorch, and he was trying to start another fire near the Kenneth fire in West Hills, and he was using the blowtorch to try and light like Christmas trees that people had left outside their house and like trash cans. And he was spotted by a bunch of citizens, so he was arrested. And guess what? This guy is reportedly an illegal Mexican national, illegal migrant named Juan Manuel Sierra Leva. And I was reading in the Washington Examiner this morning that he hasn't been charged with arson because, according to the LAPD, there's not enough probable cause to arrest him for arson or even suspicion of arson. So,
He had a blowtorch.
right. And he was trying to light trash and Christmas trees. And like citizens were reportedly saying that this guy was like, no, I have to do this. I can't stop. So I don't know what any of that means or how accurate that is, but this guy's being charged with a felony probation violation. That's it. And he's not going to be picked up by ICE, and he's not going to be deported because of California's sanctuary state laws.
What
So
does it take for California to fucking arrest people and like charge criminals? I mean, this is ridiculous.
I know it's insane. I'm actually surprised that they're arresting people for looting, which I believe is now like over 24 people. And then this morning, I see this article in the New York Post, and it's talking about how now there's this belief that the Palisades fire was possibly started by remnants of a fire that was caused by fireworks on New Year's Eve. And that, like, the remnants of this fire were reignited by the strong winds. And I guess there's satellite image analysis and records of firefighter communications from that fire and interviews and video that are all showing how the Palisades fire started in the same area that this fireworks fire was. Then there's another story going around, excuse me, that one of the utility companies in California, SoCal Edison, that they're actually doing an investigation into themselves for possibly being responsible for one of the fires, for the Hearst fire, because their equipment damaged a power line at a tower near where that fire started on Tuesday last week. And then another theory, there's this company called Whisker Labs. Excuse me, I can't clear my throat this morning. And I guess this company monitors electrical activity, like along faults on the power grid. And they're saying that just hours before each of these fires started, there were like massive increases in the number of faults in the LA power grid. So the CEO of this company, his name is Bob Marshall, and he was saying that the faults are likely caused by tree limbs that touched wires or wires that were blowing in the wind and touched each other and created sparks. And he was saying when this happens, it creates a spark in the fault, and then their network sensors can detect every time this happens. So, according to this guy, Marshall, in the Eaton fire near Altadena, there were 317 grid faults that occurred in the hours before the fire started. In the Hearst fire, there were 230 faults that occurred before the fire started. And this guy made a point of saying, like, we are not confirming that the faults started the fires, but he said that this is very abnormal because on a normal day, there's typically only a few faults that occur. And like, Stephanie, does this not sound very coincidental to the electrical problems that occurred with the Maui fire?
Oh yeah. This oh, now I have to clear my throat. For anyone listening, like it's very early my time and man, it's like every morning I just feel like I can't talk. Yeah, so this is crazy. Okay, have you seen the videos of people driving through the destroyed neighborhoods and
Mhm.
pointing out the houses that had these smart meters that are completely destroyed, but then there will be like a home that's standing next to all these homes that are destroyed and it doesn't have a smart meter? Like there's all these
No.
videos going around. And so now there's this theory that like the smart meters maybe were affected by a dew, like a direct energy weapon, like we thought happened in Maui. That would explain why the trees are still standing, but like everything else is burnt to rubble. Um, so there was like one video who it was this guy and he had a meter, a smart meter on his actual house, which was burnt to the ground. There was nothing left, but he had like a guest house type thing in the back that had no meter and it was standing and like untouched, like seemed perfectly fine. So it's just really weird. So I was looking into it and I found a website from the California Public Utilities Commission and it says the California Public Utilities Commission has authorized the state's investor owned utilities to replace conventional customer meters with smart meters in order to give consumers greater control over their energy use. Smart meters enable a utility to provide customers with detailed information about their energy usage at different times of the day, which in turn enables customers to manage their energy use more proactively. So there was like a big push to replace all of the regular meters with these smart meters. And now it appears that a lot of the house or all of the houses that had the smart meters are gone. So it's just like another theory that's out there. I think everyone should go and look at the videos and the photos that are going around. Um, but it's just crazy because you see like concrete and just everything like destroyed. But then like we talked about, I think we mentioned it the other day, the trees are still standing. And that was the same exact thing that happened in Maui. So I wanted to ask you because you were a firefighter, so you would know more than me, but am I missing something here? Like, wouldn't a tree that's made of wood burn more than concrete? You know,
Theoretically, yes.
like I'm not
But I
crazy, right? I'm not missing something.
no, but I'm going to tell you the explanation that I heard, okay? Because I saw some of these pictures of the trees, and most of them are palm trees, and they look completely untouched. Like they're totally green, and then they're just surrounded by destruction and everything burnt. But I was reading that apparently this can be explained by the fact that palm trees have thick bark and high moisture content that protects them from heat. And because of their height, they're often safe from fire, like in theory.
That's so ridiculous. I mean, these fires were a lot taller than the damn palm trees, you know?
Yeah,
But yeah, I
exactly.
like that they're at least trying to give an explanation here because we didn't get any explanation in Maui.
And you know shit. And so like people are still pissed about everything that's happening with the complete lack of accountability with Newsom and Mayor Bass. As of yesterday morning, there have been actually it increased. It was 92,000 people yesterday. And as of this morning, 108,000 people have signed a petition demanding that Mayor Bass resign. And there's also a petition going around to get Newsom to resign, but that one only has like 27,000 signatures so far. And I guess he would need at least 1 million signatures to even get a recall like on the books to get started. But for Mayor Bass, because she's LA County and not the whole state, or I'm sorry, LA City and not the whole state, if 10% of registered voters in Los Angeles sign the petition for her to resign, she might be in trouble because they only need around 200,000 people to force a recall vote. And they're already like more than halfway there with this 108,000 signatures.
Well, with celebrities pushing for this, they might get enough signatures. I would love to know all the people that voted for Newsom to stay in when he could have been recalled before. I want to know what
Yeah.
they think right now. Like, are you happy with your decision?
I still think that when that recall vote was taken months ago or sometime last year, I think those numbers were fudged, to be honest, because I think they did have enough people to actually start going through with the recall, but that's a whole other story. So there's also a viral video that's going around. It's the assistant chief, not the chief, but the assistant chief of LAFD. Her name is Christine Larson. And apparently she was the first Black woman to be hired as an LAFD chief, yay diversity. And she has this video where she's explaining why it's important to have minorities as firefighters so they look like the people they serve. And then she starts talking about how fire victims are responsible for their own fate. So I have to
Oh
play
my
this
God.
clip for you.
He's somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Okay, did you hear what she said? She
Yes.
She said, she literally said, this is the assistant fire chief who literally said that if she isn't strong enough to carry someone's husband out of a fire, it's because he got himself in the wrong place.
Then what is the point of your fucking job? Like,
Right.
that is awful.
Yeah. And California, this is your tax dollars at work with DEI.
Yeah. Well, that comedian Whitney Cummings, she's been like all over TikTok about the fires because her house burnt down and she's been like very vocal. And she was talking about this whole DEI thing and, these women that were like really pushing to have more, I think it was like more transgender people on the fire department. And she was like, none of this makes sense. She's like, that would be like me being like, I want to hire more hot guys, or for like a gay guy to be like, I want to hire more hot gay men. Because she was pushing to have like people, and she's like, are they just like trying to have a party? Like, why does it matter what your sexual orientation is, like who you
Right.
choose to sleep with when it comes to being a firefighter. Like that shouldn't even be part of the equation. And she was kind of, making a joke about it, but it's true. It's like enough with this DEI bullshit. Right now, I think everyone wishes they just had people that were competent, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this, but like Newsom has pulled a total 180. Okay. So, first, his fake phone call to Biden, and then telling reporters that, local folks will figure out the water problem. Well, now he's demanding an investigation into what happened with the water supply and the lack of pressure. And he's saying that it's deeply troubling and we need answers on how that happened. And it's like, really? Is like your state is one of the biggest wildfire risks in the nation, right? Year after year, year after year. And you fail to complete reservoir projects that were voted on over 10 years ago. And on top of that, you've allowed a 117 million gallon existing reservoir in Santa Ynez to sit empty for almost a year. There are pictures of this reservoir. It's collecting debris and bird shit. There's dead animals in there. And like, you're wondering how it happened that there's water supply problems?
Yeah, you're the governor. You're over the whole state. So it's
God.
like him trying to point the finger. Does he not realize he's pointing the finger at himself? Like you were in charge of the state. The guy is like so dumb. How did he get so far in life for being so dumb? Is it because he's Nancy
It's that
Pelosi's nephew?
smile. Yeah, it's the
It's a
hair gel and
smile.
the smile.
Oh my God.
Did you hear
Well,
the comment from Mel Gibson, by the way?
yes.
Oh my
T
God.
talk about that in case
Yeah,
anyone missed
so
it.
he was on the Joe Rogan podcast last week, and they were
Mhm.
talking about the fires, and he was basically they were like, where did all the money go for, you know, the reservoirs and everything? And he said, yeah, it probably all went to Newsom's hair gel. And then I guess like while they were filming the podcast, he lost his house in the fire, and he made the most interesting comment. Shit, I should have written. I should have written it down. He said something like, "Well, I guess this relieves me of all my responsibility for my belongings," or something like that. He just had this really like calm, laid back demeanor. Not panicking, not crying, just this like, well, I guess I no longer have to worry about having stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't see that part. I saw parts of that podcast. He also went on Fox News and like on air, he's like, it almost, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like, you'd almost think this was intentional. But I mean, why would anyone do that? I mean, of course, unless they want people to leave the state. And everyone's like, did he just tell us like what the plan is or whatever? So that was going around on social media. And my husband says that all the time too. He's like, sometimes I wonder, like, are they trying to get people to leave the state because they're just making it so miserable, to live there?
Yeah,
But
okay, wait. I just looked it up real quick because I wanted
mhm.
to see what he said. And he was basically saying like, yeah, it's a tragic loss, but everything he lost in the fire were just things, and even whether they're replaceable or not, they're just things. He said, but we're still here, and I just kind of look at it almost in a weird kind of way as purification.
Yeah, well, that whole podcast was he's a very interesting guy.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, that doesn't really surprise me coming from him because he says a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
But with Newsom, like he's being called out. So I want to play a clip from the Free Press because they went to visit the water reservoir that was empty before the fires even started. And this video is like gone viral. So take a quick listen. Uh-oh. Why isn't it playing? Shit. Okay. I am telling you, don't get the new Apple phone. Fucking sucks. I don't know why it's not playing. It's not muted, but basically they are just showing like the complete lack of planning and how when you hear people talking about like, oh, well, it's the water pressure and everything, he's pointing out, this reporter that's on site, that there was no water to begin with. There's nothing there. There were like like you were saying, it's like it hasn't been used in God knows how long. And so for Newsom to sit there and be like, we need to get to the bottom of this, it's like you knew, like, this wasn't a secret. Everybody knew
Right.
this. And then, do you know Spencer Pratt and Heidi Montag? Have you like heard of them? They used to be on that reality show, The Hills, I think it was called.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So he like this guy's such a douchebag, but he's like
I
also
know.
kind
That's
of
why I
funny.
started laughing.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, like he's all over TikTok. Like if you search the fires, like you will get a gazillion videos from him. I couldn't even find a clip because he's posting so many videos. I couldn't go through all of them. Um, but it was cracking me up because he's responding to these comments of people being like, we're so sick of hearing these rich celebrities like complain about losing their homes. And he's like, rich celebrity? When my reality show was canceled, you guys were like saying I was broke and I only had $1,000 in my bank account. He's like, this is the biggest rebrand ever. He's like, now I'm rich all of a sudden. Guess and so he's just like funny, but stupid. Anyhow, one of his videos, he's talking about how he lived right next to a reservoir and it had been sitting empty, and he even showed like the door, like the chain door to get in, and how it's shut and chained with a padlock, and no one has come by to open it, to try, nothing. He's like, it's just completely out of use. And so he was commenting to other people that were just assuming there's water. He's like, there is no water. Like these reservoirs are done and they haven't done shit to try to fix it. So it just makes it more outrageous that these things have been sitting empty for who knows how long.
Yeah, and now I'm wondering if, like, on Friday when we were talking about the water department saying that all three of the reservoirs that were for the Palisades fire were all full, like they each had, there were 3 million-gallon tanks that they were all full. I wonder if they really were full or not.
Well, he's saying no. Like I think that was one of them potentially. And because he was saying like, yeah, this isn't full, like they're lying to you. So who knows? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they were lying about that because water's been an issue for as long as I can remember. I mean, we've heard about this over and over again. So,
Well, yeah. So speaking of this, on Friday, I was talking about how, when I was growing up, they had all these restrictions on when you could and couldn't use water. And I was saying, we would get people would get fines, not me, I never got fined, but people would get fines if they violated the water rules. Well, there is like shit going around the internet because people are trashing the fuck out of Kim Kardashian, Sylvester Stallone, Kevin Hart, and Dwayne Wade because they have not adhered to California's water conservation measures. And this thing surfaces from Kim Kardashian was fined back in 2022 because she used 232,000 gallons of water for her garden. And then the other celebrities I just mentioned, they were fined as well. And like, so people are throwing them under the bus, obviously. And like the shit on social media is brutal. And I just have to preface this by saying that I honestly feel terrible for anyone who loses their home to fire or floods or any kind of natural disaster, whether they're celebrities or not, because yes, celebrities can afford to rebuild their homes and they are in a way better situation than the common people. But I guarantee you, a lot of these people that did lose their homes that are celebrities lost things that are sentimental or important or irreplaceable. And I feel for anyone who goes through that. But when
I
you're,
don't feel bad for Kim Kardashian and I don't feel bad for Dwayne The Rock Johnson because when Maui, his home, original home burnt, the whole island, he asked us to donate money to
that's
a fund. So fuck you, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I hope your house did burn down. Sorry, I guess
okay.
I'm being like mean, but
I was
I
gonna say
mean,
I'm usually the mean
32,000
one,
gallons of water for your garden when
which is
everyone else was
insane.
restricted.
Yeah. Yeah, because they can afford the fines. They don't fucking care, right?
Yeah.
And then you have all of these elites and millionaires who have been hiring private firefighters that cost like $2,000 an hour. And these private firefighters protect their homes, like with fire retardant drops and covering both their homes and the trees and everything. So people aren't happy with this elite privilege. And there's all kinds of shit going on social media, especially after this one guy, a millionaire real estate investor named Keith Wasserman, he put out a post on X asking if anyone could refer him to private firefighters quickly because the neighborhood around him was burning. And he said he would pay any amount for their services. So, yeah, it's pretty fucking tone deaf.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm sure that they just annihilated him. But
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to talk about like these cases, but there's also many people who aren't super wealthy
Right.
celebrities who like there's so many people on TikTok that are talking about this and saying like my parents bought this home back in the 80s when you could like afford a home. And what they were saying is now if they go to rebuild, like they're not going to be able to afford
No.
to rebuild because the prices of everything have just gone through the roof. So there are those instances, but yeah, like no one feels bad for these celebrities. I'm telling you, it's the fall of Hollywood. People are over it. So yeah. So no one's really feeling bad for these celebrities, but the overall feeling from social media, or at least from TikTok, is a lot of people are thinking that at least some of the fires were arson, like specifically to go after the rich. So,
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. I think there could be multiple reasons because there's multiple fires that don't seem they're like there's no way they could have started each other because they're spread out. So there's this other theory that there is a bigger plan at play for LA. And the reason is because LA is slotted to become a smart city by 2028. And this is not a conspiracy, by the way. Like you can actually go and there is an official government website that lays out all of the plans. It's, if anyone's interested, it's an interesting read. Um, the website is ita.lacity.gov/smartla 2028. So, just like Maui signed plans to become a smart city months before the Maui fires, a lot of people are wondering could this be the case in LA where there's something nefarious going on for the plans of how they're going to sort of like redevelop LA into this smart city? And then also in the summer of 2028, LA is going to be hosting the Summer Olympics. They're also hosting the World Cup in 2026 and the Super Bowl. And I remember, Tara, like we might have even talked about this. When they first announced this, like everyone was making a joke of it because they're like, well, what are they going to do with all the homeless people in the tent cities? And, it's like, oh, LA's gone to shit for years now, but for the Olympics, they'll just get it all cleaned up. Like Newsom got San Francisco all cleaned up in order for Xi Jinping to visit. And all of a sudden, everything was like magically nice and clean and pristine. So this was like a hot button topic when they first announced it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Newsom went on Meet the Press over the weekend on Saturday, and he was asked about this because they said, like, are you going to be ready to host all of these events? Like you said, the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics. And he said that he's already organizing a Marshall Plan and he has a team of this like reimagined LA 2.0. And like the Marshall Plan, I guess, is in reference to after World War II when President Truman signed the Economic Recovery Act of 1948. And so all this money, like $13 billion, was invested in rebuilding, Western Europe's economies and bringing new investments into the region and stimulating the economy. So Newsom apparently has his own Marshall Plan that he's already, you know, dealing with. And he's said he's talking to civic and city and business and nonprofit and labor leaders about recovery efforts, and they're going to galvanize the community. And he said, like, we have to be thinking 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years ahead at the same time, that we're focused on the immediacy of the fires, which is life, safety, and property. Really?
This guy, I heard him talking and I was like, he sounds just like Kamala. Like he kept saying opportunity. There's so much opportunity, opportunity. I'm like, is he fucking talking about like opportunity economies like her? But it was just a word salad, nothing, that gives you any peace of mind. And do we really believe that he has a plan all of a sudden? No, they've had a plan that we'll get into. But part of that plan is also a high-speed railway project that is planning to, I guess they're going to start construction in 2030, was what I read.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you about the high-speed rail, okay? Because this project has been in development for decades. And oddly enough, very interesting timing. Right before the fire started, this was on Wednesday, I believe, or whatever day the 7th was. Um, Newsom, okay, first let me backtrack. The project itself. This is supposed to be the largest infrastructure project in America, right? It's like a $310 billion project that's supposed to span over 500 miles across the state and basically like join California, join Los Angeles to San Francisco. Okay. And I just want to take this opportunity first to point out that there are some rational people in the California Assembly who have, like, for decades been trying to get rid of this plan and focus on getting underground electrical lines built that would have actually alleviated a lot of the wildfire risk from these overhead power lines. But these bills were always killed as being too expensive. Okay. But $310 billion for a rail project that has gone nowhere for the past 16 fucking years is apparently a perfectly acceptable expense. So reportedly, they're at the point where they have cleared the pathway from LA to San Francisco, right? And working on the tracks is supposed to start this spring. And so on the 7th, Newsom was in Kern County, where I guess this construction for the project is kicking off. And he gave this press conference. It was this big celebration. And he said, quote, no state in America is closer to launching high-speed rail than California. And today we just took a massive step forward. We're moving into the track laying phase, completing structures for key segments and laying the groundwork for a high-speed rail network. The future of transportation is being realized right here in the Central Valley, with thousands of good-paying jobs already created and 171 miles being worked on. As only California can, we're building America's largest infrastructure project, end quote. But get this, Stephanie, they're not actually building anything yet, okay? This whole celebration that took place was not for the high-speed rail tracks being laid. It was for the start of laying temporary freight tracks, okay? Freight tracks that are eventually, at some point in time, going to be used to deliver the actual high-speed rail tracks. So what the fuck were they celebrating? Like, I have no idea. And this whole project is such a fucking waste of taxpayer money. And so is it gonna, at least, what did you say, 2030 it's gonna be constructed? Like, I don't even have hopes for that. And I seriously wonder how much of a priority this project is going to be now that the state is facing billions in fire damage. But I do have some
Can
conspiracy theories.
they, real quick though, okay, $310 billion, why don't they reroute that money to the people in need?
Right.
But it's just like everything else in California. Billions of dollars are allocated and there's no outcome. They don't do anything.
Mhm.
And then I think that they hope that enough time passes to where people just forget about it and don't follow the money and ask where it went. Like, how many times has this happened in California where Newsom's given billions of dollars and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do with it?
Right. Where is the money? Where did it
Yeah.
go? Okay. But I do want to mention a couple of conspiracy theories about this, and I want to know if you've heard of either of these. So, someone first posted a reel on Instagram, and they were showing a map of the wildfires and a map of the high-speed rail path, and they basically like line up almost exactly, right? So, hold on, excuse me. Jesus Christ. Okay. So now people are questioning, like, was this on purpose? Like the fires look like they destroyed everything in the path where the railway is supposed to go. But then I did some digging and I looked up this image, and it was originally posted back in 2019 with previous fires in California. So I'm going to say, like, this theory is false. Okay. But it's still circulating as a conspiracy. But there's a whole other conspiracy going around where people are saying that Newsom and Biden started the fires in order to stop the development of the high-speed railway, which people are saying is being funded by China. Now, I didn't look into who's funding it. It is publicly funded by California taxpayers, from what I understand, but is it funded by China? I don't know. But people are saying that the fires are basically going to make this land unusable for rail development, which then sets the stage for this railway plan to be replaced with the 15-minute cities plan.
Well, that I could see. I don't think Newsom or Biden are smart enough for any of this. So, like, they're just puppets, but who's pulling the puppet strings? And the reason why I'm a little suspicious is here in Florida, in St. Petersburg, Tampa, where homes were destroyed in the hurricanes, like along the coast, all of these investors came in and bought them all up. So like the smallest investor bought like 50, 60 homes at a time. And
Mhm.
so is there a bigger plan? Like I bet investors are going to go and start buying up this land that people can't afford to rebuild on for pennies on the dollar. So I do think that there could be something going on that's nefarious. And even if they didn't start the fires, I think it's really shitty that a group of investors can just come in and benefit and profit off of people that lost everything and can't afford to replace it. I think we should stand up to that. That's absolutely insane. But you're talking about the 15-minute cities plan. And I mean, there is a lot of details out there at that website I listed earlier for a smart city plan. And this has been in the works for years. So, according to the Smart City Plan documents, the LA Department of Water and Power spent $1.3 billion dollars to reach 55% renewable energy by this year, 2025, and 100% by 2045. And it's just like looking back, I mean, did that renewable energy help you? Because it really seems like maybe if you hadn't had that, we wouldn't be in this situation. I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out there. But in this document, they list out the challenges that they're facing in order to make this a smart city. And so the first set of challenges is that they need more fiber optic cables infrastructure ahead of the Olympics. Anytime I hear infrastructure, it's like I'm paying attention because now all this land is cleared to go in and rebuild a whole new infrastructure, right? There also another challenge is having trouble getting the private sector businesses on board with this. So I guess a lot of the businesses don't want to go along with these smart city plans. Another challenge listed was a lack of monitoring and inventory of key utility systems, especially in historic neighborhoods. Now, this is interesting because I've seen article after article of the historic Palisades and how they have all these historical sites there that have been burnt to the ground. They even have their own historic society. And apparently, it was in a lot of these neighborhoods where they were having trouble implementing the things needed for the smart city. And then another challenge listed was the deployment of 5G may have inadvertently favored wealthier Los Angeles neighborhoods. So they have the goal now of establishing data inclusion projects like more libraries, parks and rec, and computer labs by 2026. So they have all these plans of putting all this stuff in, but they're getting pushback from businesses, from wealthier neighborhoods, historical neighborhoods, kind of like foiling their plan, but they need to get this stuff in before the Olympics. Okay, so there's like a deadline. So the document gives a timeline, which is really interesting because this is where it has the deadlines for when they need this infrastructure to be in place. So they need all sensors again, in place by 2025. Again, people are speculating the homes with sensors were hit harder, and it's 2025, so presumably like the majority of homes had these sensors. Next on the timeline was to build a public-private partnership by 2026 to get private businesses on board. And I'm just like wondering how many of those businesses that burnt to the ground were the ones giving pushback on this plan, saying they're not going to go along with it. And then finally, by 2028, they need to build and deploy the LAWPD power grid across LA. Hypothetically speaking, wouldn't it just be easier if everything was leveled and they could just start over since they were getting pushback from all of these different, people, businesses, places? I thought that was interesting. And there's also a deadline to migrate all of the city's sensor data to an open source platform by 2026. So they're up against a lot of deadlines right now, and I don't think that they're on track. Makes you
Yeah.
wonder, right?
Yeah.
So then, with regards to the Olympics, I was going to mention that LA agreed to purchase a wide range of insurance policies to cover financial relief in the event of a natural disaster, terrorism, event cancellation, or reduced ticket sales. So, like, I would love to know, did they already purchase all these insurance policies? Or is LA now going to get some huge insurance payout due to the fires? And then you have like Biden's, quote unquote, unlimited federal funding to rebuild LA. Is that what they need to build for the Olympics? It's just interesting because the smart city budget to like pool and share resources is due by 2026, the final budget. And I just wonder, like, are they going to try and pool the resources that they've now been given that's supposed to go to help, the people and businesses rebuild, but instead pool that towards this big project? And I mean, I thought it's also important to note the Olympics are taking place in a variety of venues around Los Angeles.
Mhm.
So maybe some of the areas that have been wiped out, I don't know. But I just think it's very strange.
Does the smart city plan show where this 15-minute city is supposed to be in the scheme of the LA layout?
I don't think they don't call it a 15-minute city or like plan on that. It's more, when you read the document, it's basically what it sounds like is turning it into a fucking surveillance state because
Hmm.
the whole thing has to do with um, data and delivering things wirelessly. So making sure that all of the streetlights, all of the homes, everything is all connected and can be monitored. They use the word monitor so many times, like a
That's why they're
surveillance state.
Yeah, that's why they're having people switch over to all of these fucking smart sensors for their electric meters.
Well, yeah, and you want to know what happens when they do that? They all have to download this app. So now you have every resident in this app where you can monitor and surveil them and probably shut off their water and electricity when they're using too much of it. It's like stuff like that they're planning on doing. But for the infrastructure for these fiber optic cables, those go underground. So we're talking
Right.
about like massive construction. And if you have businesses and homes and historical societies saying, no, you're not going to do this, well,
Yeah, and in a state whose budget deficit is so fucking massive already, where is the money coming from?
exactly. You have more people living there than ever before, paying more in taxes than ever before, and yet there's the biggest deficit. Again, where's the money going? We need like a forensic accountant to go through the state of California and figure this
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, no shit. Um, I have to mention another theory. because I want to know if you've seen this on social media. There's a theory going around that these fires are basically a distraction from the drones. Like it's a cover up for the drone issue because people are saying like the drones, nobody's talking about drones flying in New Jersey anymore. Like, are
Right.
they even still there? Because nobody's mentioning them. And now everything's about this fire or the fires. And so it's like, what happened to all the UFO and drone stories?
Well, on TikTok, I am seeing a shit ton of videos on everything from orbs to balls of fire. Like I said, that one looked like a missile to flying saucers in the fires that like, and it's not even videos people are uploading. It's like when the news stations are doing their live filming of the area,
Yeah.
people are seeing stuff flying around. And it's not like a helicopter or a plane, it's like a very strange object or orb. So people are still talking about it, but I feel like you're right. Like no one's talking about New Jersey anymore.
Yeah, which is very interesting because I'm curious if there are still, you know, hundreds of drones over New Jersey and the East Coast. So, switching to like something based in like complete reality, I want to take a look at what's happening with FEMA because the administrator, Deanne Criswell, she gave a press conference on Sunday and she was talking about how they're very prepared for these devastating wildfires. And she rambled on for a while, but basically she said, don't expect FEMA to do much to help you because the real problem is the fact that, you know, people's whose home burned up, a lot of them don't have insurance because of what we talked about on Friday. And this is the real concern because FEMA programs are only in place to help jumpstart the recovery process, not to replace insurance. And without insurance, people are going to have to figure it out for themselves.
Oh my God. I want to scream, okay? Because I looked into this. I fucking went on the FEMA website. I was trying to figure out like for our roof, do we get the $750 to replace it to go towards the deductible, right? Because it's like a $10,000 deductible. We were told immediately, like immediately, it gave you a response on the website that says because we have insurance, we're not eligible for anything. Not the $750, nothing, because that's what insurance is for, and you have insurance. So now they're
Whoa.
saying the fucking opposite. See, this, it's such a scam.
And this is really fucked because I guess the maximum FEMA grant level is $44,000. So that's the maximum, which means most people are going to get way less than that, probably the $750. And clearly, like, even if you got the max, that's not even enough to pour a concrete foundation for a home in California. Okay. So as of yesterday, over 24,000 people in California have applied for FEMA assistance so far with these fires. And she was saying she's expecting the number to go higher. So she was asked in this press conference, like, what is the top priority for recovery efforts? And she said the cost of removing debris is going to be the first thing. And that's why Biden has given 100% of cost reimbursement to California for debris removal. And I guess FEMA recently received an additional $27 billion to support response and recovery for the fires. And she was talking about how this money is also going to recovery efforts that FEMA's still doing in North Carolina and Georgia and Florida from the hurricane damage. Um, but yeah, is FEMA still helping the hurricane victims? Because they're still suffering, right? And I was just reading an article this morning where, like, now because of the winter storm, all of these displaced people are now dealing with snow and ice and temperatures below freezing. And people in subsidized housing were scheduled to lose their housing on Friday because of like the way the housing vouchers work or some shit like that. But because of the storm, they got extended until tomorrow. But like, what a slap in the face to these people who've been dealing with these devastating loss for months with minimal to no assistance from our government. And then you have Biden announce 100% assistance to California, right? So there's this guy named Jason Ward. I guess he works for a nonprofit group called Valley Strong Relief, and he's been helping hurricane victims since October. And he posted and said, quote, "We're praying for California. We've had several people make the trip across coast to come volunteer here with us with Strong Valley. This morning, I saw a post made by the leader of the free world. He said he was announcing that the federal government would cover 100% of the cost of measures to protect the lives and property of Southern California over the next 6 months. I hope that happens. But what about Appalachia? We're 105 days in. We're still supplying our own campers and shelters while paying mortgages on piles of rubble," end quote. So, like, as much as yes, FEMA needs to help the fire victims in California, like, how much can FEMA actually do?
I
I
don't
mean,
think they're helping any actual
anybody.
person.
No,
That's the thing. And this money, this one, I'm going to cover 100% that Biden says. In that whole press conference, they flat out said to go towards rescue workers,
mhm.
infrastructure, like not to the people to rebuild. Like they're giving this money to the government that seems to constantly lose billions of dollars. So I don't think any of that money is going to actually go to residents unless they're friends of Newsom.
I agree with you because they haven't even made an announcement like they did with the hurricane where families will get, whatever amount of
Right.
subsidy. Like they haven't said a fucking thing.
Right. And in North Carolina, people are saying, like, okay, their house washed away, but they still have to pay their mortgage
Right.
because if they don't, they lose that land.
Hmm.
So, and the same thing is going to be with anyone that had a mortgage in California. It's like the bank is now going to own all that land, and these investors are going to come in
Yeah.
and offer a deal to buy it all up. And you have people living in tents in North Carolina in freezing temperatures. This
Yeah.
one guy was saying they're going through 10 propane tanks a night, and people are wondering where they're going to get their next tank from. I mean, dire, situation. No one's doing anything from the government, not FEMA, not Biden. It's all these, good-hearted people and nonprofit organizations
Yeah.
that are doing anything. And it's just absolutely insane because like you said, this was in October, right? Or September.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then there's another thing that's really weird. So I want to get your take on it since you used to live there. But there are tons of videos going around online of people recording what sounds like explosions in downtown LA, and like it almost sounds like they're coming from underground, but they only hear it at night. And these people are like, it's not just one, like you will hear it multiple times, but it'll only be like in the middle of the night. And so they recorded it and it does. It sounds like some underground explosion or something. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's real, if it's fake, but have you ever heard of that when you lived there?
No.
It's weird. And it's
I,
not
I
like it's from the fires, because I know like things will explode with the fires, but this is like in downtown, like where the big buildings are.
I was gonna say, are you sure it's not gunshots? Because that's the
I
only.
mean, it could be. It really could. It is chaos. Like you were talking about looters and everything.
Mhm.
Well, the Army Reserve Center was broken into. I mean, how does that even happen? They stole an armored Humvee, two cloth door Humvees, eight machine gun vehicle mounts, seven freestanding machine gun tripods, 40 pairs of binoculars, 18 bayonets, and medical equipment. I was at the Army Reserve Center. Like, how, isn't that supposed to be one of the most secure places? Like, what the
They
hell?
cut, right, from what I read, they cut the fence.
Yeah, like,
That's how they got in.
how is that possible?
I guess it happened, I think, on Wednesday, but we didn't hear about it until later on Friday. And that's that's the big question. Why was there like nobody? Don't they have like security 24 hours a day at those facilities?
Yes. Yeah, something we I mean, I think that's very strange. And yeah, we're not
Yeah.
really hearing much about it.
No, and as of last night, LA County Sheriff's Department said they have arrested 30 people for looting. So last week it was like 20 and now they're up to 30. And I think I mentioned like they have these curfews in place. And I don't know if you saw like there was reports of a possible burglary at Kamala's house last week. I think it was on Friday. So of
No, I
course,
missed that.
oh yeah, so of course LAPD rushed over, to her house to protect it. I'm not trashing the LAPD at all, but I just am making fun of Kamala.
Yeah.
But I guess they didn't find anybody, so nothing happened. But the biggest question I have right now is what the fuck is going on with Trump, okay? Because I don't know if you've been following what's happening between him and Newsom and everything else, but he's been posting a lot of stuff on True Social, basically condemning Newsom in California for mismanagement of the land and the water issues and all the stuff that we've already talked about. But I keep seeing all these articles where Newsom has invited him to come to California and see the damage. You've had several California mayors and assemblymen reach out to Trump. Bass has reached out to Trump because, of course, everyone's freaking out, right? Because he gets in office in 7 days, and all these officials are worried that he's not going to fund emergency aid for California. But the interesting thing is, like, Trump has not responded to Newsom's request. And I look at his responses to the hurricanes, to other, like even the East Palestine train derailment, when he went to these areas and saw the devastation and was very active with these incidents. And all he's done with this one is basically trash California. So JD Vance did an interview on Saturday morning, and he was asked directly, is the incoming Trump administration, is it possible that they'll withhold aid from California? And he gave a pretty political response. And he said, quote, President Trump cares about all Americans. Trump is the president for all Americans, and I think he intends to have FEMA and other federal responses much, much better and more clued into what's going down there on the ground, end quote. But he didn't really answer the question. Like, is it just me, or do you feel like this is weird?
Well, okay, so after hearing Trump on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about how he had everything in place to fix this problem years ago, all Newsom had to do was sign on the dotted line and he refused to the point where Trump was like saying, if you don't do this, you're not getting federal funding. So if I were Trump, I would be blowing off Newsom as well. I'd be like, fuck you, get me someone that actually wants to fix this because Newsom clearly doesn't. But then on the flip side, I saw a town hall with Karen Bass, and one of the reporters asked about this. He's like, do you think that Trump is going to try to withhold aid since this is a state that didn't vote for him? And she was like, completely like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't see that at all as an issue. And she said she was in a meeting and talked to Trump, and they were planning a date for him to come out there. And she seemed like, that's not going to be a problem at all. And he's on board with everything. So I don't know what to believe, but I'm sure Trump is pissed and not going to do any favors for Newsom. He's probably going to go around him if he is going to do anything. But it's like he tried preventing this. He got everything in place and Newsom refused. And now Newsom's going to ask Trump for help. You know what I
I,
mean?
yes, I get that, but at the same time, I feel like he basically, and again, I'm not bashing Trump, I love Trump, but he spent his whole campaign talking about uniting America. And you do have a ton of people in California who are not fucking Democrats, who had their houses burned, who probably voted for Trump, even though it doesn't matter who you vote for in California. But this is an opportunity, like the first major disaster, for him to have the opportunity to come in and be that uniter. And maybe he's going to do it. But I just think the fact that he hasn't said anything about it yet is very questionable to me. And I really just hope he does the right thing, because I trash talk California all the time, but there are good fucking people in that state. And even though the governor and the fucking mayor and a ton of other people have destroyed the fucking state, there are still good people there who aren't in favor of what's happening there. And I just think this is an opportunity for Trump to do something positive in his whole unite the country thing.
But like, what is he gonna do though? Like, he's not in office yet, you know? And I
At
think
least
he's
go
already
there.
promised North Carolina. Oh, yeah, he could
But at
go
least,
there.
yeah, at least
He
go
could
there
go
like
there,
he
but like,
did.
just think about it though. Like, just put yourself in his shoes. If you had spent years getting everything in place to fix this problem, and then douchebag Newsom is like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, are you gonna go? Because what is he gonna do when he goes there? He's gonna meet with Newsom and Bass. Like, I think
But if
he's
he
making a
doesn't,
point.
yeah,
I think he's making a point, like, to let them know you didn't want to work with me before. Why should I work with you now? I don't think it has anything to do with the people of California. I think he's making a point to Newsom of like,
which,
this is what happens.
and that's all the more reason why I think he needs to go there and not meet with fucking Newsom or Bass,
I
but
disagree,
just
though.
give a press conference to the
I
people of
disagree.
California.
I disagree because if you go on social media, like on TikTok, I think if he went there, it's going to cause a shit show. People are going to be like, oh, so you're going to go help California now. What about North Carolina? And oh, you're going to go help the rich celebrities. And I get what you're saying. Like, there are normal people there that aren't affected, but that's the overall tone right now. So I think he's kind of in a situation where it's like, if he goes there, either way, it's not going to be a good look for him. He doesn't want to work with Newsom probably. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see, but I think it's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I respect what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from. And yeah,
But why does he need to go there though? If Biden's already promised, oh, we're
but
going to
that's just
100% reimbursement,
I
you know?
again I think it's a way of following through on that whole unite the country thing. And I think it's a very obvious fuck you that he did go to Florida, he did go to North Carolina, he did go to East Palestine, and he has is not doing the same thing for a huge fucking disaster in California, whether or not it's a Democratic state.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
We'll see. But I want to mention something else because um, Don Jr. made a post on X last Thursday, and he was talking about how the LAFD donated a bunch of supplies to Ukraine. And this is true. It happened back in 2022. So get this. I don't know if you saw this. Zelensky is now offering to send firefighters from Ukraine to Los Angeles. And I would play the clip, but he's speaking in Ukrainian. So he posted this yesterday, and the caption on the clip says, quote, "Today I instructed Ukraine's Minister of Internal Affairs and our diplomats to prepare for the possible participation of our rescuers in combating the wildfires in California. The situation there is extremely difficult, and Ukrainians can help save American lives. This is currently being coordinated, and we have offered our assistance to the American side through the relevant channels. 150 of our firefighters are already prepared," end quote. So I guess it's not that bad in Ukraine if they can deploy 150 firefighters to California.
Well, I mean, we give them 200 billion and they're going to give us 150 150 firefighters. Okay, I did not hear that, but I did hear something else and I don't know if it's true. I'm just throwing out like a rumor going around. People are showing articles, but I don't know like the source of the articles. But anyways, they're saying that there were 8 like mega mansions that were destroyed that were owned by Ukrainian generals in LA.
Oh,
And people are
wow.
like, why do Ukrainian generals own mega mansions in LA? And it's kind of like the whole thing when they were caught buying yachts and stuff.
I was going to say, because they're the ones funneling all the money back to Ukraine.
Yeah. I'm telling you, like, there's so much money laundering
Oh, yeah.
in the government. It's just crazy.
Well, wasn't
And
there a whole
yeah.
thing like, and I didn't take any notes on this, but I remember reading there's a whole scandal with Mayor Bass and projects that she put all this funding into. Like,
I don't know the details of it because I saw a video come through and of course it was taken down. So I couldn't, I didn't like screen record it or anything, but it was a guy that pulled up like her campaign donors. And he was like, it's interesting when you look at this donor list because every single donor would be an organization or a company that would be directly involved in rebuilding LA.
Okay.
So that was kind of interesting. Um, but then, like I said, the video was taken down and I couldn't find anything else when searching for it. So they're really cover and I'm sorry, but TikTok, why the fuck are you still censoring things? The American government is
Yeah.
trying to end you and you're still censoring stuff. Like, why? Just
This
let
is
us
the
talk.
time. Yeah, this is the time to just do the big fuck you and let people say whatever they want on TikTok.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be
Oh,
gone. Like TikTok said, they're just gonna pull out and end things on the 19th.
were you the one telling me that people want to boycott Facebook and Instagram
Yep.
because now Zuckerberg suddenly wants to be free speech?
Yep. Everyone's saying like, oh, funny how right when TikTok gets banned, all of a sudden Zuckerberg's going to be like good and like let you have free speech and all of a sudden let you talk about politics and they're like screw you. Um so everyone is planning on like banning it, deleting Facebook and Instagram off their phone. There's people, it's so funny. There's this like trend going around and it'll have like an emotional movie clip where people are like about to part ways and they'll be like me and my Chinese spy saying goodbye after 6 long years. And it's just like cracking me up because people are like, I would rather the Chinese spy on me than have to go over to Instagram, you know?
No
Um,
shit.
so
Because the
it's
Chinese are
crazy.
spying on you anyway, whether it's through TikTok or something else on your phone.
Right. But everyone, myself included, I was like, it's not actually going to happen. And if it does, it's going to be months. But then TikTok flat out said in the Supreme Court hearing, we'll be done. The 19th, like we will be done because all of these companies, like the Apple App Store, Google Play, all the servers, all the infrastructure they need to run TikTok in the US, these companies aren't going to work with them come the 19th. So they're going to like shut it down. And
Great.
people are not happy.
Well, I guess we'll see what
180
happens
million
with that.
Americans.
Yeah. Jeez. All
All
right.
right. Well, if that happens, I guess I'm gonna have to learn X because I'm not.
Yeah, we need to do that anyway.
Yeah, we do. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that's what's going on. So I guess find us on X. I would love to know everyone else's theories because God, there's like 20 of them. So what else is going on out there that everyone thinks? Fill us in. I guess reach out on X. We got to start doing that. And yeah, I hope you have a good week and we'll see you back here on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in.